happy and safe. MindSpark is honored to have with us today Mr. Sandeep Johri, Chief Executive Officer at Tricentis, on our show, The Quarantine Talks.
Mr. Johri is a mechanical graduate from College of Engineering, Pune, COEP. He also earned master's degree in industrial engineering from Wayne State University, Detroit, and an MBA from Stanford University. Mr. Johri has been an investor and advisor to many of the startups in India and Silicon Valley. Before joining Tricentis, Mr. Johri served as COO of Accelerator and Vice President of Strategy and Industry Solutions at HP.
So we have a few questions that have been pitched in by the viewers, COEP students, and by us. We would love to have you answer some of them.
Sure.
So, sir,
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me over on this talk. I'm always look forward to doing anything with COEP. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but we started a COEP organization in Silicon Valley a while back, and we do an annual function. And I started the LinkedIn group for COEP. We have now 5,000 alumni. So I'm a big fan of COEP. Still am, 30 years later.
Thank you, sir. So, sir, what are certain expectations companies have from millennial engineers, and what are the traits that you look for in us?
So, for different companies have different expectations. If you're joining a software company, obviously they want you to be, they want you to be aware of whatever skills they are looking for. I can talk to software companies and then maybe talk about in general. So, in software, and people in India, most of the students are pretty plugged in, but, you should obviously have the skills that they require, whether it's programming skills or whatever. But also being aware of the market is very important, and aware of the latest trends. And technology is a very changing business. What is relevant 5 years ago is not relevant today, or there's new things that become relevant. So the college only teaches you the very basics, right? The college curriculum cannot keep up with the latest things that are going on, but it teaches you the basic foundation. Think of it that way. And everything else you should learn on your own. And now there are so many courses and so much information available online that you should always try to jump on the latest trends in technology, because technology is a very dynamic industry, and staying current and being aware of the latest developments is what I think makes you very attractive to someone who's looking to hire you. That's kind of technical skills. There's non-technical skills, obviously, which sometimes don't become very evident in interviews. If you go through a mechanical interview process of do the exam and do this and do that, but people that are effective are people that are willing to take initiative, people that have a good attitude. Those things become more important later than just the raw programming skills, as an example. Programming skills eventually everybody has, right? So,
sir, being the CEO of Tricentis, we know you have a very busy schedule from 9 to 6. Sir, from 6 to 9, what are the other hobbies? What are the other hats you wear? What are your side interests? Could you please share some of that with us?
So, unfortunately, being CEO of a company, of a private company, pretty much being CEO of any company, is not a 9 to 6 job. It's more than 9 to 6 job. So when I was reading out these questions to my wife, she started laughing. She's like, really, 9 to 6? When was the last time you started at 9 and ended at 6? So that's just the nature of the business, right? That's just the nature of the beast. But to your question of what do I do outside, I do lots of different things. In the winter, I love to ski. So I try to go skiing. I'm a big hiker. I try to go on hikes, and every so often going on treks. One of the best treks I did was a Stoke Kangri trek in Ladakh a few years ago with my son. We climbed the peak of Stoke Kangri. So luckily where I live in California, there's a lot of outdoor activities you can do. So I do skiing, hiking or trekking when I get a chance. My weekend is usually I do road biking, the road bikes. So I do about 20 to 30 miles every weekend, typically on Saturdays. What else do I do? At home, I have other hobbies that I try to do when I have time. Like right now, because of COVID, and I'm stuck at home, which drives me crazy, even though I'm working 12, 14-hour days. So I decided to start making bread. And I actually successfully just made 2 nice loaves of bread, 2 sourdough loaves of bread, which was kind of fun. So right before this call, I was making my second batch of bread because the first batch came out so good that now I'm making a second batch. So I like to cook once in a while. I don't have much time, but I like to cook fancy things. I like to do, I do stuff around the house. I'm given that I'm a mechanical engineer, I still have some of that mechanical engineering interest and skill. So, whether it's not anymore, but in the past, I've redone my whole bathroom. I've built all the bookshelves for my kids, all kinds of stuff. So my wife tells me if I don't have work, I make myself busy with other things. That's just my nature. So, and of course, I read books, but I love reading books. Typically before I go to sleep. Lately, I've been reading fewer books, but I always try to, read some book or the other. Always have one book active.
So, sir, you leading HP's $4.5 billion acquisition of Mercury Interactive is the talk of the town. So, what challenges and obstacles did you have to overcome, and how did you come out of it for the better?
So this was a long time ago, Anshika. I'm surprised it's the talk of the town. Maybe people who are in testing still remember that. Others, in tech, we forget 10 years is way too long. I did that acquisition 12 years ago in 2006, actually more than 12 years ago, 13 years ago. Yes, it was the largest acquisition for HP at the time. Mercury Interactive was $1 billion company. We were looking to make a big play. I used to run M&A. In total, I did 13 or 14 acquisitions, and a total of $7 billion. But Mercury was the largest one. So at a big company, when you do an acquisition, there's a whole process you go through. We articulated our strategy, so we knew which areas we wanted to go into, which areas were of interest to us. And then you track all the companies in that, you research the companies. This is what in large companies, there's a function called corporate development, corp dev, they call it for short, or M&A group or corp dev group. That's the group that typically does it. I used to run that group for software. So I had a team that would look at companies, explore the landscape in that area. And then Mercury Interactive, of course, was a very famous company. It was a large company at the time. It was almost $1 billion. And we had talked to the CEO. I talked to the CEO a year earlier. He had said, no way, I'm not interested, and then there was some change of CEOs. And then a year later, we went back to them because we were still interested. And they were willing to, we had done all the research on the company. Because it was a public company, you could do a lot of public research. So we knew their business, we knew their products, we had talked to their customers, we had talked to our own customers and advisors, senior executives from our own customer base, asking them, hey, we are thinking about this. What do you think about it? And they said, it's a great company. We love it. It'll be great if it's part of HP. So there's a lot of groundwork that is done. And you have to make a business case of how, their revenue. How much do you think you can make out of it, right? Can you expand it? How much profit will you have to do a full P&L and make a business case out of it, because you have to go justify to the CEO that you're going to spend so much money, but it's still a good deal. It's still a good investment for the company. So you have to do a lot of groundwork. And so it included, there was a lot of groundwork done on, that's what corp dev people do. They kind of build out these business cases. They build 10, only one deal happens. And then eventually when the company is willing, then we went to our CEO and our board saying, we want to do this. We got bankers involved. And then we negotiated, and then it becomes a competitive situation. So that goes on pretty intensely. That's when 9 to 6 goes out the door completely. When something like that is going on, you get deal fever. Everyone's working 24 hours to get the deal done. And, once you get the deal done, then you have to deal with all the integration issues, right? Getting the deal done is easy. When you're writing a check, it's easy to write a check, right? Giving somebody money is not difficult. Or at least on their end, it's not difficult to take money. But making the company work in a bigger environment, is integrating the company, is where the real challenge of M&A is. And that's why you see so many acquisitions fail. Not because they were bad ideas, they just fail because the teams don't come together, things don't work out, and 2 plus 2, instead of becoming 5, it becomes 2 or it becomes 3. So you lose value. So you have to really spend a lot of time planning out how we're going to work together, who's going to run what, how you integrate every single function from HR to engineering to product to go-to-market to marketing to sales. Every function needs to be thought through. So there's a lot of prep work and a lot of post-acquisition integration work that goes on. Those were the challenges. And the challenges are always people related, Usually it's always people related, right? Most companies' challenges are people related, especially in tech, especially when you do M&A and things like that. So.
Today, the young generation is always grooming themselves and always talking about the future. Sir, so what do you think would be the essential qualities and skills for the leaders of tomorrow?
Young people always talk about the future. Everyone should be talking about the future, We also used to talk about the future. So that's always the case. I think, leaders of the future, I think the core leadership skills don't change. The leaders, you go back to Alexander the Great, right? The leadership skills that you needed then and what the leadership skills you need now are not very different. The tools and the skill and the technical skills and the domain expertise and environment, all of that changes, but core skills don't change. And at the end of the day, leadership is all about leading, right? Leading people. So the most important skills are learning to work with people, learning to motivate people, learning to convince them of your point of view so that they want to follow you. Right? You want to follow leaders. When Alexander the Great said, hey, I'm going to go start conquering the world, he had to inspire his people. Of course, he bribed them too, saying, I'll get you a lot of money. But just that alone wouldn't do it. He had to inspire them with a vision, and they had to believe in that vision. And that's what led to them. And if you look at his failure, for example, Alexander failed after coming to India, right? He won against Porus, and then he could have had a really good fight with who was it? I think it was the kingdom at the time was the one from Bihar. I forget the name, and they believed both of them were very strong. But the reason he quit at that point is because his people would not follow him anymore. So the most important skill is the ability to influence people, build relationships with people, inspire them. Those land up being the most important skills. That's true today. That's true for the future. Individually, you have to pick up a lot of different skills, right? Depending on the industry, depending on the technical challenges, or depending on the environment, all of those are different. But good leaders can typically operate in many different environments.
So artificial intelligence and machine learning is the new rage these days. Every student and every professor you talk to, this is one of the favorite topics they talk on. So how exactly, according to you, is artificial intelligence and machine learning, AI and ML, taking over today's technology?
So the technology industry, more than any other industry, is heavily buzz-oriented, right? Today it's this, 10 years ago it was cloud. And the buzz is always ahead of reality, right? So the buzz is all AI, ML, and it's been there for many years, right? 2, 3, at least 5 years. Before that, it was data. Everything was data, 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 right? Before that, it was cloud. So these buzzwords in technology there's always going to be a new set of buzzwords, right? Then there was containerization. Everyone was talking about containerization. So you have to be careful of the buzzwords, but the buzzwords eventually become reality because there's something there. It takes a long time for technology to mature. But AI and ML, if you think about it, 5 years ago, there was a lot of buzz about it. There's a lot of buzz about it today. It was not real 4 or 5 years ago. It's a lot more real today. So what happens is when there's buzz, from a marketing perspective, everyone starts marketing. So we call it washing, right? When it's cloud, then everyone says, okay, we are cloud, you become buzzword compliant. So, and that adds to the buzz, right? So every company, no matter what they're doing, they could be doing food delivery, but they'll say it's AI-based food delivery algorithm. Now, whether there's real AI there, I don't know, okay? But everyone is whitewashing with AI and ML. So that's the buzz part of it, right? And you got to recognize what is buzz and what is reality. However, AI and ML is maturing every day and will continue to. It is fundamental. It's going to be a fundamental aspect and component of computing in the future. As computing and storage and data have become cheaper, you have incredible, if you won't believe it, but when I came to the US in '83, there was an artificial intelligence lab at CMU, Carnegie Mellon, way back, like in '83. So artificial intelligence has been talked about for a long time, right? But the computing and the data and the storage were too expensive that you couldn't leverage it fully. And now all of those things are becoming so cheap that a lot of AI, ML learning, and they're highly compute intensive, right? So you need cheap compute to be able to be able to run AI and ML engines, and you to have a huge data for the learning itself, right? And I'll give you an example. So it is becoming real. It will be real. It'll be more and more relevant. So you should, if you're at college, and you should try to learn as much as you can about AI and ML, as much as you can, because it's going to only keep increasing in its importance. And I'll give you an example from our company. So in testing, we automate applications, right? To automate applications, we need to instrument the interfaces, right? So if it's a web interface, we understand HTML, right? Our tool understands HTML, and we can instrument HTML. And when you are running an automated test, you can say, okay, this variable is a pull down, go to third value for this field, go to this is a radio button, turn it on, blah, 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 pick this value, pick this. We instrument all of that, and that's what we do in automation, right? But to do that, we have to learn, we have to be able to understand what the interface is, and we have to be able to understand what it's for. Is the pull down menu, let's say it's an insurance company, and a quote configurator, right? Like an insurance quote you're getting from an insurance company. You need to be able to understand that variable is the model of the car, and this variable is the state you're living in, and all those kinds of things. These are very simple examples. But when we run into enterprises, what ends up happening, everyone has funky controls that are difficult to understand from a product perspective. So what we have to do then is the standard stuff our tool can learn and understand, interpret. But then there's always 20, 30% of the controls that are very unique to that particular application that we can't understand. Well, now you have to go in and manually make sure that you explain what each thing is to the tool. Once you explain all of that, then it knows what it is, then it can start running automation. So that's the problem statement, right? And there's no way to do it except doing it manually, because every company, whether it's an insurance company, medical company, oil company, everyone has different applications with different interfaces. So what we did is we used a AI machine learning, AI-based machine learning, where we make it learn every possible interface element. Let's just take HTML interface element so it has now learned close to 1 million interface elements across every application that we could get our hands on, including from customers. Now, if you give me a new application, there's a very high chance that those 20-30% that we don't recognize natively, it's somewhere in that million that we have seen it before, we have learned it, so now we can apply. So this couldn't have been, we made it learn, like last October, it had something like 500,000, actually it's more than 5 million elements now. The compute power that it took to go learn all that is immense. 15 years, even if we had the same idea, we couldn't do it because the compute was too expensive. It would take 1,000 machines. No one would say it's worth it. So AI and ML is very real, and it will continue to become more and more real. Right now, everybody washes everything with AI, right? From a marketing point of view. But from a core computer science, software engineering point of view, it's real, and it's going to continue to be more real.
Sir, every student that enters COEP and graduates from here has an emotional attachment and a connect to the college. What is your favorite memory from the time when you were a COEP student?
In some ways, COEP hasn't changed, right? Boat club is still the best place to hang out. My wife still talks about the boat club vada pav. When we make vada pav here at home or at friend's place, we always compare it to the boat club vada pav. So, those things don't change. Going sculling in the winter and doing, boating, all of that was great. I lived in the hostel. So for me, there are great memories of staying in the hospital. I mean, in the hostel, never went to the hospital, thank God. We used to have a lot of fun in the hostel, like all hostel people. I have memories of, there were times at which my family was in Bombay, so I used to come from Bombay. We would take the 6 o'clock morning train from Bombay just in time for the 10 o'clock class. And we start playing bridge in the train. And then we come to Pune and say, forget the class here, let's just continue the game. You go to the hostel and you continue your bridge. And there have been times where we spent literally nonstop 24 hours, playing bridge. So there's all kinds of crazy, stupid things like this that you do when you're in college. And those are the great memories, memories with college friends are the best memories that stay with people. Unfortunately, I don't have any recollection of any professor because I didn't attend any classes. So I'm not a good example I'm not a good role model. For that matter, when my wife heard about me, through the family, somebody introduced, I was in the US. She used to work with some other people, and then she asked around, and one of them or two of them happened to be from 83 batch. And electrical or ENTC or something, I don't know. And they said, she was checking me out, you have to always check out the person, right? Who knows? Everyone looks good on the resume, but you have to really check out the person. So she asked them, and they said, I don't know anybody, Sandeep, in 1983 batch. So then she asked another one. He said, no, I also don't remember anyone. Then she's like wondering, this guy in the US must be faking the degree. God knows, maybe he's not from COEP. Maybe it's all fake. Who knows, right? You get worried, right? You don't know the person. Somebody introduced you through a family. Then those two guys went and talked to some other Puneris and then came back and said, oh, yeah, that Sandeep guy, he was a hostel, the hostel, what do you say, Bombay wala hota. So, they used to just live in the hostel only. So at least she said, okay, at least I know that he was there at college. So she was asking me that when we first met, and I was embarrassed. I said, I'm not surprised they don't know me because they're from ENTC, they're all smart people. They go to college every day. They go attend lectures every day. I didn't. I was sitting in the hostel. If you ask any hostelers, they will know me. but or somebody at the boat club, they would know me, but good students would not know me. So, but COEP was a lot of fun. It was great memories.
Okay, so in these days of coronavirus, wherein everyone is quarantining in the safety of their homes, so how do you turn these quarantine days into an advantage? How do you best utilize them?
So, personally or professionally?
Personally, professionally, 50-50, sir.
50-50. So personally, actually, most people I know, even at my company, they're finding that, you think you're not commuting, you're not going to meetings, which half the meetings are always a waste of time. You will have a lot more time. That's not what it's turning out to be. Actually, everyone's finding that they're working longer hours because everyone's on the phone. Everyone wants to talk to everybody. So you have to be really careful. Actually, today I had a town hall. We have a global town hall with all people from the whole company. And not today, sorry, on Monday. And somebody asked that, and I said, yeah, you have to be very careful about it, because when I first started working, so I always have worked from home, on and off. Like often I start at 6 a.m. Because I have a lot of people in Europe, and it's good time for them. So I start 6 or 7 in the morning. I do 2-3 meetings, then have a shower, go to the office. On Fridays, sometimes I work from home. I'm like, I need some quiet time. I'm just going to stay at home and crank through stuff. So it's not like this is new, but being at home full, I realized in the first week or 10 days that it was like 14 hours nonstop on Zoom. It's like crazy, right? So after that, I decided that I'm going to carve myself at least an hour and go out for a walk, like a really high-paced walk. So I've been doing 10,000 steps every day for the last, 3 weeks, just to get out, because otherwise you'll go crazy. Now in India, I know they're locked down. You can't walk out and stuff. That's okay. That's understandable. But people can do little exercises or something like that, right? You don't want to come out of this coronavirus quarantine, eat twice as heavy because you've eaten all day and been on Zoom meetings all day. So, doing something personal like that. And then I was thinking, I've always been fascinated about making bread, right? I like to cook once in a while, but bread was something I've never made. And it's always difficult, right? It's very precise you have to be, otherwise it comes bad. Let's say you get enough technical and you're kind of maxed out on technical, right? Only so much your brain can take. Do something completely different. Take a course on motor car racing or something. I don't know. There's so many crazy things you can do, and using when you come back to normal, you can say you don't want to look back and something you haven't done. That's on the personal side. On the professional side, I think it's a great opportunity to really commit and do something out of the norm, right? That, hey, you're going to be in lockdown for the next 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, you can become an expert in MAI just by taking a bunch of Coursera or other courses. Using that, when you come back to normal, you can say you don't want to look back and make something out of it, right? Do something different.
So what does success look like for you?
That's right. I'm very happy. You can always have more. You can always desire more. You have to set yourself some goals of what is it that you value. And I'm pretty content and quote successful. I don't, but it's a state of mind. I have a good family, good house, good children, good parents, good relationships with family. I have a good job. I really enjoy what I do. That is what is the ultimate success. Like, an artist, they find pleasure in what they do, right? And actually, one of my classmates from COEP, he's a very famous painter. I don't know if you guys know. You can look him up. He's based right in Pune. Milind Malik is his name. Look him up. He's class of 83, COEPian. He's like a world famous painter. You ask him, what does success look like? He's like, I'm happy. I'm doing what I really enjoy doing, which is, in his case, painting. For him, what I do is completely irrelevant, and I could never imagine myself being a painter, right? I would go crazy in sitting in a room like painting or looking at some nice landscape for hours and figuring out how to paint it. I would go crazy. But it's all comes down to what is it they enjoy. And when you're young in college, it's very difficult to think about that. But the quicker and faster you really find your true passion, meaning what you really enjoy doing, that is what drives success and happiness. And if you really enjoy doing what you're doing, then you will be successful at whatever you do. You could be a cook, right? If you really like cooking, you could become, and if you really excel in that because you really enjoy that, you'll become a famous chef. That's successful, right? Both financially and non-financially. I'm not talking about financial. Financial also comes, right? If you excel, then all the financial stuff comes and drive what you truly enjoy and are passionate about.
So as children, we all dream of something or the other. As college students, our dreams change, and those keep on changing as we grow up. So what were your childhood dreams? Would you like to share something on them?
I was thinking about this lately, and it's funny you added that as a question. I was telling my wife, I wanted to be, so dreams change over time, right? I wanted to be an engineer because I wanted to start my own factory. That was my dream. And I said, if I have my own factory, that's great. So do engineering and start a factory. And hey, because it's a business, meaning own my own business. That was my dream. And that's why I wanted to get an MBA. So I kind of knew that much. I didn't want to come to the US. My dad asked me to come to the US. I didn't want to do a master's. I said, hey, I haven't attended any classes in COEP. How am I going to do a master's? But you can't tell that to your father. So he said, well, you should do master's. I'm like, okay, sure, whatever, right? You don't argue with your father, at least then. I didn't. So he'll start asking you your grades. So you just say yes and move to the next room, right? But even before that, so I didn't really want to, that was my dream, is to be in India, start a business, and that was my dream. But I used to think about what kind of business, and I was like, it would be great to like have an international business where I can fly to all kinds of places. And remember, at that time, no one flew, okay? Only super rich people flew, and only super rich people went abroad, right, to different places. Now everyone goes everywhere. It's easy to go, except for this Corona thing. But at that time, the first time I flew, I think the first time I flew was when I flew to the US. That's it, right? Nobody, it was not that common. So those were my dreams. They were very simple dreams, right? And I was talking to my wife and I said, geez, it's not my business. I'm the CEO, but I have started several businesses. And I think I did a tick mark on the international travel because I travel way more than I need to. I have more than 1 million miles on United, credit million miles. I travel 300-400 miles every year. So I think it's tick mark on those goals. But, goals change over time, right? So it's good to have a goal. It's good to have a goal anytime, but that doesn't mean you can't change your goal. A goal is a nice motivator. It gives you direction.
So what is important to your organization? Mission, vision, or values?
Mission, vision, or values. I think all three are really important. Mission and vision are very aligned, and it's important to have the vision, a mission, because that tells you where you're headed. When I joined Tricentis, it'll be 7 years this July. The reason I joined Tricentis and the strategy that I had has not changed at all. I said we want to be the number one company worldwide in testing. We want to be the number one testing platform. And because that's a big market, I knew the market because of Mercury. And I said, there's an opportunity for a new leader to emerge, and I want to be Tricentis can be that leader. At that time, we did less than 5 million in annual recurring revenue. So a lot of the people, except the founders of the company, I wanted to make sure that they are aligned with my vision, but because if they're not aligned, then I shouldn't be joining them, right? But the rest of the employees did not kind of fully believe it. They're like, what? It's like sitting, it's like being being a small company and saying, whatever. They thought, hey, we are a small little company in Vienna, Austria. How can we be the global leader, blah, blah, blah. And they kind of didn't believe it, but I believed it, and we stuck to it, and eventually people come around, and then they started seeing progress. So vision is important, even if everyone doesn't believe it, because it becomes your guiding. It sets your goal, right? And it's like when you go trekking, right? Every time you can see the peak, you know where you're headed. Now you can go meandering around and about to get over things. And there are 15 different routes, but if your peak is visible, you know where you're headed. So that's the vision and the mission point of view. Mission is a little different. I think, I don't know, you can debate whether they're different or the same, but having a clear vision and therefore the strategy to go against it is really important. And then the values become important because they guide your behavior on a daily basis. Like one of the values in the company, that we have like 5 values. One of the values in the company is one team, right? One team is really important. That means we are all one team. If we bring in another company, we are still one team. If we cannot have fights or silos between sales and marketing and engineering and all these different organizations, you have to keep, if there is tension, then you have to remind them it's one team. Customer success is the value. So when it comes to difficult decisions, how do you make decisions? It's like, hey, customer success is really important. Like, right, because you get into situations where you need to do something over and above to make a customer successful, and they're not paying for it, or they don't have the money, and you're like, should we let them go to hell? Let them, not succeed? The values become important because they become your behavioral guideposts. Just like society cannot operate without societal rules, right? The rules of law. If everyone did whatever the hell they want, and traffic in India seems like that. But even then, there are rules, right? To people outside India, it looks like it's chaotic. But there are rules, actually. Otherwise, everyone would be dead today, right? And I was telling someone, for example, they said, why is it so noisy, the traffic in India? I said, because it's not because people like noisy stuff, but you think of blowing the horn as a protest. In India, it's not a protest. It is sometimes, if it's traffic jam or something, but usually the horn is like the indicator. Hey, I'm here. You're coming on the right, suddenly. So there are rules that you learn inherently. And again, if you think of the analogy with driving in India, why do people that come from abroad feel like, oh shit, I can't drive here. This is crazy. It looks completely crazy. But Indians drive aram se. Why? Because there are certain values you have. If a person from the US comes, for example, in India, you know that people are not honoring the lanes. So if you're in your lane, you don't assume that no one will come in. You know people will come in. So the rule is that you got to watch that someone's not coming in. In the US, if you're in your lane, you don't need to watch, because anyone that comes in is supposed to tell you that they're coming into your lane. So you take one set of rules, you put in another. There's no right or wrong. It's just you need to know the rules to operate effectively. If you don't know the rules or the guideposts, you'll have a disaster. Right? So for the organization, it's the same thing. The values become your guideposts.
Okay, so that brings us to an end to our questions. So on behalf of MindSpark, thank you so much for taking out time and talking to us. It has been an amazing and an enlightening interview. So would you like to share a small message as we conclude the talk?
To the COEPians?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. What is that slogan we have? Because we do that.
Yeah.
So that's right. So we still do that in our annual event here. So believe it or not. So COEP is an awesome place with the best, incredible students. I mean, all COEPians are super smart. Everyone should be proud of that. And it's a great place to be. Build those friendships. They will be your friends for life. And go out and excel. That's what the COEPians do. We've been able to pull together COEPians who are from class of 1956. There's a COEPian who's 90 years old. Okay, he has built. He is a civil engineer. He has built some of the biggest, some of the most famous buildings. He's did the engineering on that and going out and doing it. Being proud of yourself and going and doing it.
Thank you, sir. Well, this brings us to the end of our talk.
Sir, I hope
you also enjoyed the interview.
Yes, I did. I always enjoy talking to COEPians. So thank you both, Anshika and Pranav. Thank you for your initiative. I know I keep hearing about MindSpark'. It's a pretty awesome event, and this year y'all have not been able to do it. So I'm glad y'all are doing something virtually. That's a great thing, and best of luck.